Hi, everyone, and welcome to Risk Awareness Week Day 3 summary. I am delighted to share with you some of the key workshops that were happening during Day 3. Now, if you have questions, comments, if you want to share your general feelings about your experience in risk awareness, write it in the comments. Don't be shy. I am seeing all the comments. Write it in the comments. Ask questions. Ask for for some feedback on the workshops and so on. Let me just quickly check technology. Everything's working, and I can see all comments. Now, first, some administration. Do not forget to upvote the workshops that you watched and really resonated with you and made a difference and made you learn something new and useful. Thanks everyone who is participating in our daily feedback. Let me quickly share with you feedback from the last 3 days, including today. Are you excited about the event? 88% of you said yes, so thank you. And by the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook, say hello in the comments. I will see you. And second of all, we are talking about Risk Awareness Week, which is this global platform that I've created 3 years ago, and where we talk about integrating quantitative risk management into different aspects of decision making, business planning, forecasting, budgeting, and so how to use scientific risk analysis for better business decisions. So back to feedback. Are you learning something new during the event? And 84% of you said yes. I do not believe the other 16% because yeah, I'm learning something. I'm learning a lot of new stuff. Some of the workshops, including today's, which I'm going to talk about in a second, are pretty mind blowing because they share the latest research and some of the uh, actual challenges that we've been facing as a risk profession. Andre, hi. I see your comment, and thank you for doing a workshop today. And by the way, you can watch Andre's replay on the website, still available. At the top of the screen, there's the button called replays, and you can rewatch all the workshops from the past 3 days. And then finally, the question from today, I've asked, is the online format working for you? And that is something that troubles me most of the time because which is kind of ironic. I created a Risk Awareness Week long before COVID, and back in the day, it was probably the only completely online risk and decision-making event. Um, Now I'm no longer exciting because there are risk events online happening like literally every day. But so interestingly, 86% of you said yes. You said yes, that online format is working for you. I'm yeah. I've been using a very similar format for the last 3 years. A lot of workshops non-stop, like 7 or 8, or sometimes 9 per day, 9 to 6 p.m. Non-stop. I think I will try something slightly different for next year. So if you have any thoughts, any feedback, I mean, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn or just write in the comments because I'm really interested. Is the format really working for you? Because there's just too much information. I mean, I don't know how can anyone digest the amount of new information that we share every single day in the Risk Awareness Week. And by the way, thank you to everyone who is participating. If you haven't registered, you can register. 3,183 participants in total have registered up to now, and there's usually plus 100 or 200 people registering every day. So exciting, exciting to share this journey with all of you. Now, let me talk about the workshops and some of the highlights that have been happening today. And first of all, let me see who is our unofficial winner. The most likes for today was received by Doug Hubbard in his session where he talked about um, a very important topic of using expert judgment as an input to quantitative risk analysis. Uh, one of the fundamentals of quantitative risk analysis is that we have to represent uncertainty as ranges, and the more uncertainty, the bigger the range. And sometimes we can use statistical data to estimate the range of uncertainty and the behavior of the uncertainty, the kind of the shape of the distribution. But sometimes the historical data is insufficient, or we want to supplement the historical data with expert judgment. Well, Doug has been studying for years, together with a lot of other very respectable scientists, have been studying that when you ask people for something, they often give you an answer that is not actually reflective of what they actually think, the truth, the reality, and may be influenced by a lot of things, starting from rainy weather to whether they've eaten recently or not, or whether they're going through a breakup in their marriage, all of those things. Or even, and this is one of the other sessions today, today was that depending on whether the person drinks a hot tea or a cold drink before a meeting, he would behave differently. I mean, this is just kind of blows your mind. And as you can tell from my kind of this beginning of the description, day 3 was all about risk perception, human psychology, and the kind of the neuroeconomic side of risk analysis. Because in risk, we have to have conversations and discussions around risk with other people. And whenever we get other people involved, we are faced with noise, biases, and heuristics. And those three things have huge impact on the quality of data that we use for our risk analysis. And Andre, thank you for sharing your thoughts on Doug's session. I too found it very inspiring. So in the first session, if you ever in the position that you want to ask other people in the organization for some sort of risk self-assessments, or you want them to provide you with input into your quantitative models, you must watch this session, Doug's session, and you must watch it together with Graham Keith's session, which was today. It was later in the day. They've actually tackled the same problem of improving individual guesstimates by different methods. And let me give you a very quick snapshot. Must watch sessions. So if you ever rely on people giving you some sort of input into your risk analysis models, you must watch those two sessions, because unless you calibrate the experts or use and this is what Doug's presentation was about, and there's actually a sound mathematical way that allows you to aggregate different calibrated expert judgments, and that actually improves the quality of the forecast. So it makes the kind of the range of the uncertainty more representative of the reality, and less influenced by individual bias and noise. So you can do that. And then Graham talked about a kind of a simpler, quicker, and purely statistical method of achieving a similar, slightly kind of less precise, or I guess smaller improvement, but still a big enough improvement that you would want to use, but a much quicker, much simpler technique. So those two workshops, Doug Hubbard, an author of two books, uh, uh, version 1 and version 2 of Why Risk Management. By the way, I always butcher the name. If you know the exact name of the book, please write it. Why Risk Management is Broken and How to Fix It. That's how I always refer to it. By the way, probably one of the best books on risk management that has the word risk management in the title. So if you work in the risk profession and you haven't read it yet, the second edition of the book was out last year, and it's a masterpiece. So those two sessions by Doug Hubbard and Graham Keith answer a very important question. As soon as you want to get input from experts in your organization or externally, you have to calibrate them. You can improve their judgments by aggregating them. And Graham is proposing a very nice and a simple statistical method for improving the individuals' forecasts. So those two sessions, don't miss them. Replays are available. Great sessions on using experts for quantitative risk analysis. If you're still doing qualitative risk analysis, you kind of must calibrate your experts, because your reliance on their input is so much greater. And unless you do that, your prioritization of risks, your output of your risk analysis will be completely misleading, or as some scientists say, worse than useless. So those two sessions I've talked about. Then the second session during the day today in the morning was Sarah Davis from Australia, and she talked about personal risk taking. Now, this is less about mathematics and more about inspiration. And this session, I was so glad when Sarah proposed to share a workshop at the Risk Awareness Week, because this is something that I face on a daily basis. First of all, she's quite into different extreme activities in personal life while being a risk manager at work. And her session is very inspirational because she shows how to apply kind of your tricks of the trade in your personal life, how to do a risk analysis for going mountain climbing or kayaking on wild rivers, and just doing some absolutely crazy things. And it is, in my mind, it's a perfect example on how you actually not just talk about risk from 9 to 5 when you're in the office, but you continue applying the same risk-based thinking in your life. And yesterday, I shared an example of how I did have a Monte Carlo budget for my wedding. So yeah, I apply risk management to everything I do in life. I mean, I make my wife write a decision tree for choosing a location for our daughter's birthday, and she hates me for it. Initially, but it really helps. And I think my key takeaway from Sarah's session, which I highly recommend because it's very inspirational. I highly recommend it. My key takeaway from Sarah's session was actually two things. Is one is you have to do your homework and do the risk analysis for whatever crazy activity you want to undertake. And second one is you're still not going to predict all the risks. So being prepared and just mentally and physically prepared to unexpected events and just doing quick turnarounds, changing your original plans. That I think is one of those human tendencies that they don't teach us enough in school, and I wish that I have the patience to teach that to my children, because you just I hate the word agile, but that's exactly what you have to be in life. You just have to be prepared for everything and anything. For example, when COVID started and just the stock markets just collapsed. Um, yeah, some of my friends went into the mode of complaining the lockdowns and how annoying they were, and how everyone is trying to take on their freedoms. I to myself thought, once in 10 years opportunity to invest. I invested everything that I could, like almost like didn't stop going to restaurants just for the sake of having more available income, to just to take that opportunity, which happens once every kind of 10 years. And obviously it paid off quite well. And to me, this is, whatever the life throws at you, if your mind is prepared to quickly think, okay, well, okay, it's pretty bad, it's scary, but can I take at least some advantage out of it, is the mentality that really helps. I think helps people to survive, and Sarah is a perfect example of that. She survived a lot. And then the final, and she had a very nice analogy that life is snake and ladders, that game where you randomly get pushed up or pushed down, and that thing that this kind of the choice whether you're lucky or unlucky is pretty random, and you just have to be prepared for whatever the outcome is. And then the final message from Sarah's session, which was amazing to me, so I again highly recommend watching it, is just do it. This is something that I see with my family. Is we literally we would do a risk analysis, and then the risk analysis would tell you that something, for example, a COVID vaccine, is not a risk-free exercise, but it is also not a high risk. It is, compared to other things, it's the right thing to do, which analysis tells you, and then you start overthinking it and going, oh well, or maybe, or why. But at some stage, you just have to accept that there's no risk-free decision in whatever you do. You're always going to commit to some risk, and yes, you may be super unlucky, and you would get horrible side effects, and it is a possibility, just like with anything in life. But you just have to make decisions. You cannot not make decisions, because not making a decision is also a choice with the consequences. And often delaying or not making decisions actually may cost you significantly more than otherwise. So that was a wonderful session. Then Christian Hunt, founder of Human Risk, did his presentation, and he had 5 important messages, which let me summarize it for you. His general theme was, what you see is all there is. And not for us as the risk managers looking at the situation and thinking, okay, well, this is the kind of the risk profile that I see, so that must be the risk profile that really is. That is actually never the case. There's always more. We only see the tip of the iceberg. But what his message was is that when we as risk professionals are communicating with the business, the way we communicate and the environment we set up for that communication, and the messages and how we package them and what we give them to participate in the risk discussion, is all they see. So for example, if you used the wrong first impression, or the wrong words, or the wrong colors, or the wrong template in the emails or checklists, or templates that you send out to the rest of the business, they will behave accordingly. And most likely that will be different from what you expected from them. That's why I am inherently scared of self assessments, for example, because unless you're super skilled and at creating self assessments, and you have back tested it and tested it with different audiences, so you've done extensive homework, uh, you're pretty much guaranteed to get completely random, highly spread, highly volatile responses in your self-assessments, just because people will perceive them differently. And another few other important messages that Christian was sharing is that um, often the data that we ask for our risk analysis may not be the data that we actually need to make conclusions, and we need to look for alternatives. And another important message is that past experience, he actually had 5 messages. I'm giving you 3 to encourage you to watch his session because, well, first of all, I mean, Christian is an amazing presenter. And one of the images I will share with you, one of the images from his presentation, which just really struck me. But his third, it's actually number 4 out of 5, his key takeaway is that the past experience may actually be of little value when you're trying to estimate future either behavior or future behavior of the of the risk factor, the volatility of the risk factor. And that is a huge consideration in quantitative risk analysis that we do. By the way, I don't see many comments and questions. Please ask more questions and comments, and just share your experience of the risk awareness week so far. So a big consideration for all of us when we model future uncertainty is to be very mindful that just using historical data, even long time series of historical data, may not be a good enough predictor of the future behavior. So that was a very powerful session, which I encourage you to watch a replay. Then we had Kurt well, I think his name is Kurt Nelson or Kurt Nelson. Um, I had a friend from South Africa. His name was Kurt, but it's Kurt in South Africa. So he had a wonderful session on the topic of environment and how it is important for us to create a culture where people can actually share and talk about risks. And he was the speaker who gave a wonderful example on how humans had a different perception of the situation depending on whether they held for 30 seconds a hot cup of tea or a cold iced drink. That changed their perception of the surrounding situation and their perception of an individual that they've been talking about. This is just how crazy human brain is and how unpredictable human brain is. We are influenced by so many weird things that few lessons come out from that. So, for example, in my previous place of work, I on the intranet, on the corporate intranet, I created a page for risk management where I shared all our risk policies and videos of our risk trainings and different presentations and some recordings of other workshops and so on. And one of the things that I've created on that risk management internal homepage was a form for anonymous risk escalation. Somebody could have written something that would just go to us in the risk department, and we would add it to our risk conversation. And the question that I always ask is, how many times do you think I've got a message through this form? And well, you can write your guess in the comments, but I'll tell you, I got zero messages over 3 years, not a single message over 3 years, and I was happy with that because I didn't do it for the sake of actually getting messages. What I've done it for is for creating an environment of trust and the culture of trust. And in fact, I had numerous directors and managers and staff just come up to me to my office or meet me in the corridors and talk about the risks. And I feel that part of the reason why they felt comfortable doing that is because I gave them the channel. They didn't use the channel, didn't want to use the channel, but I gave them this culture of transparency and openness. Shayla, thank you very much for your comment. I'm glad that you're learning new approaches to risk management, and risk psychology is a huge aspect. So thank you for your comment. Huge aspect of implementing risk-based decision making. Regan is writing something. Thank you. I agree. I'm glad there are at least 15 to 20-minute breaks between the workshops, and that does make life a lot easier. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed all the presentations. I would consider it for next year to have some sort of, well, we do have a Facebook group, and I see people kind of adding to it. There's the risk awareness Facebook group. And I see people kind of joining it, but nobody's really kind of having a conversation. I don't know why. For some reason, yes, Slack seems to be a safer environment, I guess, for people to share and openly talk. So yeah, why not? Maybe next year I'll do it. Andre, thank you. I totally agree. Brain is very lazy, and again, understandably, because brain requires a lot of power, and our battery is limited. So we're basically in the energy saving mode most of the time. So it's I think it's evolutionarily logical that we are being lazy and we're trying to shortcut whatever is possible, because otherwise we would just have to eat so much more. Maria, thank you. Great idea to have a summary of the day. I too wish all conferences had that. I, I, I think I think it was my idea because I don't remember whether I copied it somewhere. But oh well, yeah. I'm glad it's working out. I'm just glad to I'm just glad to talk to people in real time and ask questions, answer questions. Um, Sean, okay, great. Now I see that it was you. Okay, no worries. Yeah, fine. Facebook, I got the message. Facebook group doesn't work out. I'll do something else for next year. So, Kurt, I let me quickly wrap up on his key messages. He gave a lot of examples on how the environment that you create for the conversation. So, and that again, that is super important, because whatever risk session you do risk sessions, you do risk interviews. We always have some sort of risk conversations. Even presenting your risk, the kind of your risk analysis as part of the decision making at the board or as part of the performance reports. Because remember, in risk management too, we report risk at the same time as performance. We don't do risk reports. Even that, the environment in which you do that will have a huge influence on how people will behave, how they will contribute, and what sort of information they will share. So Kurt gave a lot of valuable insights into how creating a better environment for kind of this open and more trusting conversation. Then we had Andre Daos to talk about contrarian thinking, and as a contrarian in the risk world, and as someone who's pretty much feels it's his uh, obligation to go against everything that COSO publishes or ISO publishes on the topic of risk, or PMI publishes for that matter, or BSI publishes on that matter. I feel myself I am a very contrarian person. Now, Andre, since you're watching, maybe you can add something to the quick summary of your workshop. So what I liked, uh, contrarian thinking is, and this is what I got from your workshop, is a crazy thing that kind of goes in waves. It used to be popular in history, then it kind of disappeared a little bit. Then it used to be popular during military times, and then it kind of disappeared again. And some of the latest Pentagon or White House may not even be utilizing the tools and techniques that have been available to them forever. And Andre talked about, so here are just some of the techniques. And he talked about, by the way, before I talk about techniques, you did talk about 2 simple rules for any meeting, any risk discussion, any risk workshop that you are going to run or facilitate or participate in. 2 simple rules to make it a better exercise and have a better contribution and collect more data from the participants. And I'm not going to tell you what those 2 rules are because you'll need to watch the replay to find out. But here are some of the um, techniques that Andre mentioned. Devil's Troika, weighted anonymous feedback, influencer engineering, pre-mortem analysis, swan dive, and the enemy within. So the key takeaway of this session is that there's the whole school of thought on contrarian thinking, on thinking, on breaking down the kind of the group. Um, what's the name of the group think? Of course, I also what's the name of that bias where groups tend to agree with something? Um, and there are techniques that we as risk professionals have to utilize in every risk session that we do, because unless we break down the groupthink, we will not get to the actual to the actual risks, and we will not be able to estimate them fairly. Thank you for that comment. Contrarians have always been there, and we need to protect them because since I'm a contrarian in everything I do, I'd like to think of myself as a risk management unicorn. There are very few of us left. But I enjoy passionately disagreeing with a lot of with a lot of things. Now, the next session was. Thank you. The next session was from Tim Houlihan, and he actually gave a very nice introduction into some of the most common biases and the idea of noise that affects our decision making. So if you're kind of new to the topic of risk psychology and not familiar with 2 Nobel Prizes in economics by Vernon Smith, Daniel Kahneman, and Richard Thaler, um, and a lot of the literature on that topic, Tim's session would be a wonderful kind of intro into the topic, because he talks about 5 biases that are most common, that whenever you have a risk conversation with someone, it is pretty much guaranteed that not opponent, but the participant in that conversation is falling into one of those into one of those biases. And it's important for you to understand that they do that not because they're bad people or because they're hiding something or because there's some sort of criminal intent, but because that's how evolution built our brain. And so it is overcoming biases together is a normal exercise. And then Tim talked about the concept of noise, which is the latest book published by Daniel Kahneman, came out this year, where he is discussing the idea. And chapter 2 in that book, which is an example that Tim shared in the workshop, is my favorite because I have to deal with insurance underwriters every week. And that was the best, the funniest study. Like I tell all my brokers to read it when they convince me that underwriters are very good at pricing risk. That was a wonderful study on how executives thought that the variance in how different people within the same company, even within the same department, assess a certain risk. So everyone was given the same risk and they had to price it or basically assess it. Judge whether that risk was, big and hence expensive or small and hence not expensive. And the executives thought, well, that the variance is going to be like 5-10% because everybody's going to judge this risk in some sort of similar fashion. And in fact, the actual variance was more like 60 to 70%, which means whenever we paying for insurance, we could have been, just because it was somebody didn't have breakfast on the day, we could have been overpaying 50% or 60% for our insurance policies because somebody mispriced the risk. Or when I say mispriced, we don't know, maybe the high price was actually the fair price and somebody underpriced the risk by 60%, and we were just completely lucky that somebody did have I don't know, good news in the morning and had a good breakfast, and hence we just ended up paying less for insurance even though the fair price was much higher. But of course, that's I don't believe that that is often happening. Usually, we overpay for insurance significantly. So, Tim's session was a great intro into what are the biases, what are some of the common ones, and the idea on how different people look at exactly the same situation and view it differently because of their individual circumstances, background, education, and so on. So again, Tim's workshop is available for replay. Watch it whenever you can. By the way, I didn't. I did. Well, I mentioned it yesterday. I didn't mention it today. Some of the workshops, when you join them, you automatically enter into like a lottery of winning some wonderful prizes. So whoever watched Andre's workshop, for example, or Filippo's workshop, which I'm going to talk about next, they could have won nice prizes. But also, some of the speakers, and most of the speakers, I've really asked them to provide the slides or the sample models. But some of the speakers provided really nice handouts. And if memory serves me right, Andre's handout was one of the best ones. It's a very nice guidance that that you can read to understand how to improve group decision making using different techniques that have been available to us forever and have been used extensively by military. And so the final session for today was Filippo Marino, and he talked about uh, three three things. And he applied this idea of biases and noise and the flow of averages that Sam Savage mentioned yesterday to a very specific topic. Again, but the findings are not just limited to that specific topic. He talked about travel, safety, personal risk management, risk management and those very popular, you must have seen them because brokers love to publish them, political risk maps, travel risk maps. And I highly recommend, so if you're seriously using them for your work, must watch Filippo's session, because he's showing you how the methodology used to aggregate those risk exposures is so fundamentally wrong and biased. Not just mathematically wrong, it is mathematically wrong because it falls into this flaw of averages, and it's so biased that the decisions that you would make based on those aggregate nice colorful pictures are horrible. They are significantly different to the decisions that you would normally make. So if you're using you know there's catastrophic maps, travel maps. If you're looking at murder rate per country, or recommendations, travel advice for certain locations, you have to be very mindful that all of those things are perfect examples of how far you miss the point by not understanding the nature of uncertainty and volatility and risk. And to me, this was a very interesting example on how we often rely on certain conclusions and templates. And for example, World Economic Forum World Risk Report, something that for some reason risk management community is super excited about, and um, that we like, some people actually like seriously use it for something, but when you start to understand the methodology that goes behind collating all of that data, you would just be I think disgusted by how not just not robust, but just how naively inaccurate the methodologies that collate all of this together. So they're nothing more than a marketing brochure, and should really never be used for any kind of sensible decision making. So Filippo shared quite a few fascinating examples. I used to have such a map on the wall in the office, and obviously I don't have it for ages now, but like, my God, you just don't realize just how clueless the methodologies that put this together, and I thought that was absolutely brilliant. And again, in the very much in the nature of Risk Awareness Week, because in Risk Awareness Week we I think our core theme is challenge everything, and don't trust the standards and the popular literature on the topic. So I hope by day 3, we challenged everything that you've ever read in the book that had ERM in its title, especially if it says ERM best practices or something. I hope we've destroyed every single one. We've disproved every single one of those hypotheses. Um, any more questions, thoughts, ideas, please share in the comments. Other than that, day 4 tomorrow. Tomorrow is all about project management. So how do we do integrated cost and schedule risk analysis? How we do risk analysis on the work breakdown structure? How we estimate contingencies? How we model non-linear Monte Carlo? How do we use parametric modeling? Everything that a project manager must know in the current reality. And if you are a project risk manager, then it's a must see day for you. If you're not, there are project risk managers and project managers in your organization. Share with them the link, because tomorrow is going to be hardcore project risk management, and you wouldn't want to miss that. So unless any more questions or thoughts from you, let me quickly check. Oh, there is one. Thank you. Thank you, Jerry, for sharing. Um, no more comments, though I was glad that you joined me today for day 3, and I'll see you tomorrow in day 4.